Ki Fateh.
WhyGuru Ji Ka Khalsa, WhyGuru Ji Ki Fateh. Tejinder Singh, can you just put the lights on, please? Thank you, bro. Thank you to all the Sangat for attending today. We're a bit worried. We thought no one was going to come because there's a Parchar Smagam down the road and also a program in Slough as well. But it's nice to see the die-hard Sangat turn up for the Japji Sahib course and the Gatha downstairs as well. Just before we start, just a few announcements. This week, starting from Thursday, it's like full action-packed Gur Kirpa, loads of programs taking place. On Thursday, we have a program at Guru Nanak Road, Gurdwara Sahib, Old Havelock Road, from, I'll say about, is it 5 o'clock onwards? 5:30 onwards. So we got Gatha, Kirtan, Baba Ji becomes a Baba Avtar Singh Ji be coming down as well to get the darshan as well. So it'll be a lovely program. I'll be the 20th of July, the day of Bhai Sahib Jagral Singh Ji's passing their Barasi. We're in the 20th. On the Friday in Slough Gurdwara Sahib, we have a meet the team type of, I don't know what you call it, program where Bhai Harman Singh and Bhai Simranjit Singh from North America be down as well. So it'll be nice if you can be there. Ask them questions. We have an open panel, so please do come down to that as well. Saturday of the Simran job, so for 13 hours from 11 a.m. to 12 a.m. Right, so for 13 hours, just full on WhyGuru Simran. Right, so that'd be a big blessing as well. So let's try and come down for all of that as well. Try and save for 13 hours if you can do it. Maybe take a few breaks. Then on Sunday, next Sunday, it'll be like the finale, the big program, which is the Porg. So we have loads of speakers out there actually. So quite blessed. I think it's the biggest program we've done so far, besides the 13-hour job for Bhai Jagral Singh Ji's Barsi. That'll be Kirtan by Harpal Singh Ji, got Kirtan doing Kirtan. There'll be Bhai Harman Singh again, Bhai Simranjit, Bhai Supreet Singh, Bibi Gurpreet Kaur, Bhai Gurcharan Singh, lot of Bhais, getting tired of saying Bhai's Bibis, and then Bhai Maan Singh, Bhai Mandeep Singh, Bhai Amandeep Singh, myself. A few other people might have missed the name, so I'm sorry for that. But everyone will be doing a talk on that day. It will only be for 5 minutes. But and then Gyani Sher Singh Ji as well will be doing Gatha on the day as well. And then there'll be a City Sage Part Borg as well. So that's going to be a huge program from 5 o'clock all up to 9:30. So again, that's like a super weekend of programs. So hopefully we can make it for all of that. We also have a hike. The fundraiser hike, which is taking place in mid-August on August the 12th. So if you guys haven't signed up, please do sign up. Please do come down to that as well. That'd be great. That's enough of the announcements. I'm tired of talking, so I'm going to pass it over to Bhai Manpreet Singh. He's got a really cool presentation today. I saw it yesterday. So please do get involved. Please engage. And, try and come forward as well. If you guys, don't mind. Don't be shy. There's all this empty space here. Vidya just sat still like, I move. But you move like an inch. Just an inch. That's all I got, right? Thank you, guys. So I'll pass it over to Manpreet Singh, and then afterwards you do Samapti. WhyGuru Ji Ka Khalsa, WhyGuru Ji Ki Fateh.
WhyGuru Ji Ka Khalsa, WhyGuru Ji Ki Fateh. I think that's your fun fact for this week. Manpreet Singh struggles plugging in mics. There you go. Thank you guys for coming to week 25 of the Japji Sahib course. Flying through it. Today we're going to cover body number 23. And before we start, as usual, let's start off with the Mool Mantra. Let's do this all together. So let's close our eyes and focus, Ji. Ik oankar satnam Karta Purkh Nirpau Nirvair Akal Murat Ajuni Sapang Gur Prasad Jap Ad Sach Jugad Sach Hap I Sach Nanak Hosi I Sach Ad Sach Jugad Sach Hap I Sach Nanak Hosi I Sach. WhyGuru Ji Ka Khalsa, WhyGuru Ji Ki Fateh. Okay, so last week, Bibri Simran Kaurji took us through body number 22. And this body was all about worlds, wasn't it? Patala, Patala, Lak, Agasa, Agas, how there's so many countless different worlds out there, the search for which is never ending, right? And we heard the Sakhi of Bir Dastagirji and their son, who actually went and traveled to all these worlds with Guru Nanak Dev Ji. And when they came back, they were holding Parchar for everyone as a nishani, as a symbol of where they had been. And then the body goes on to talk about if someone was to write this account, if someone was to log all of these different worlds, it would be impossible. We'd die before we could get to the end, right? It's just unlimited. And ultimately, only the one knows the one. Okay, so to kick us off this week, we're going to start off with an analogy. You guys know how much I hate going straight into it. So today's analogy, I want you all to imagine that you guys are parents, and I assume some of you here are already parents, but for those of you that aren't, I want you to imagine that you've got kids of your own. And your kids are old enough now to go to school. So you wake them up in the morning, you get them ready, you send them off to the school. And then it gets to, what times do schools finish? Say 3 o'clock? If they still finish at 3 o'clock? I'm kind of old, but that's when they used to finish when I was young. So 3 o'clock, you go to your school and you're waiting for your kid, you're waiting, and lo and behold, your kid does not come out. So you're waiting, you start to get a bit worried. Other kids are leaving the school, but yours isn't. You can't see them anywhere. Now, if you're my parent, you'd know that I was in school because I was getting told off, but not in this case. So you end up going into the school and you speak to the teacher, right? You say, look, where's my kid? Where are they? Now, imagine this teacher spoke to you and they said they don't want to go home. Your kid does not want to go home. They've fallen in love with school so much, they don't want to leave. See some of the parents like nodding like, yeah, that sounds brilliant, man. But in this case, the child has fallen in love with school so much that they've forgotten who you are. Imagine it's your child, but they've forgotten who you are, their parent. So our third Guru, Guru Amar Das Ji in Sri Anand Sahib, they say, Har Jot Rakhi Tudh Vich, that Har, WhyGuru Ji, God, put their Jot, their light, into us, right? That's why we came into the world. So it's a bit like if we were parents and we got our child ready for school, just like a parent sends their child to school, that's what's happened with us. And it seems kind of weird, doesn't it? Because how many of us even remember the fact that we've been sent here by God? Even to say it sounds a bit weird. I don't feel like I've been sent here, but we have. But the problem is, we, like that child, have forgotten our own parent. So Guru Amar Das Ji goes on to say, Har Ape Mata, Ape Pita, that Har, WhyGuru Ji, is our mother, they are our father. Jine Jiyo Upaye Jagata Dikhaya. So they're the ones that created everything and revealed it to us. So this world, this school that we're in, it was all made by WhyGuru Ji themselves. So a quick question to you guys now is, what's making us forget our own parent? If we know WhyGuru Ji is our mother and our father, why are we forgetting them? What's making us forget WhyGuru Ji? Any guesses? Hanji? Oh, that's a really good guess, Darshan. It's almost like you had training on the car ride here. Yes, Maya. Okay, so Guru Amar Das Ji, they go on to say, so because of WhyGuru Ji's bana, because of their will, that's why we were born in the first place, right? They go on to say, Paravar Palapaya, that our Paravar, our family, are so happy at that time when a child is born, hopefully anyway. So then what happens is, in Gurbani, Maharaj talks about what happens in the womb. So this is before we're born. And many times in Gurbani, Maharaj mentions how as a child, as an unborn baby, we're upside down, the womb is very hot, it's very dark. It's actually a very difficult place for the child to survive. So what happens is the child focuses on WhyGuru Ji, on God. But then when they're born, what happens? Live churki. That love starts to fade away. So they're in love with WhyGuru before they're born, and as soon as they're born, the love starts to fade away. Why? Lagi trisna maya amaravartaya. Because of Maya. Maya runs its course, and that poor child ends up forgetting that love for WhyGuru. They forget their parent. So if we think about the thoughts we have, let's just look at all the thoughts we've had today. Just have a think to yourself. It's almost 8 o'clock. So from the start of today till now, if you were to put all of your thoughts into a category of those where you're thinking about Guruji and you're thinking about God, and those where you aren't, which one is the most thoughts? I know for me, it's the ones where I'm not thinking about Guruji. So what is it? What's taking our focus? We know it's called Maya, but what is that? Any guesses, any ideas? What is it that takes our thoughts? What do we focus on? What makes us forget our own parent? Any guesses? Hanji Karamveer Singh, that was a very reluctant hand. That was like a half. Go on, bro. The world. Hanji, the world. So what about the world makes us forget? That's a good answer. You're right, it is the world. But what about the world makes us forget? Yeah. Illusion, distraction, yeah. Good. Hanji Darshan. Material things, definitely. Any examples? What's a material thing? Phones, yes. Great answer, phones. Hanji, was there a hand at the back there as well? No? She stole your answer, didn't she? Good one. Okay, so yeah, it's this world. We focus on ourselves, right? Our wants. As soon as we wake up, it's what do I want to eat for breakfast? What have I got to do today? I, me. It's very rare that we actually take a couple of minutes just to think about where we're from. It's not surprising, actually. This Maya, this illusion, it's so powerful, it's not surprising that we forget who our parent is. It's not surprising that we forget that we've actually been sent here in the first place. But what about those who do realize? What about those who realize that Maya is an illusion? Those people who remember their parent? So Guru Arjan Dev Ji, our 5th Guru, in Sri Sukhmani Sahib, they describe these people as a Brahm Gyani. So Brahm means God, and a Gyani is someone who has knowledge. So someone who has knowledge of God, someone who has merged with God, they are a Brahm Gyani. So Maharaji says, Brahm Gyani ke naam adar, meaning that a Brahm Gyani, someone who remembers their parent, takes the support of Naam. So when you look at this, you can start putting 2 and 2 together. You realize that when a Brahm Gyani is saying WhyGuru, they're not just saying the word, they're actually calling their parent. There's a big difference, isn't there? Massive difference. You can sit and say WhyGuru, but how often do we actually call out to WhyGuruji? Because ultimately, that's how the Brahm Gyani became a Brahm Gyani in the first place, right? They called out to their parent. If we were a parent and our child called our name, we'd go to them, right? It's just logic. You wouldn't ignore your child, you'd go to them. So that's all a Brahm Gyani has done. And what happened? WhyGuruji, their parent, came and met them. So they merged. So I think it's a good time for us to just take a couple of minutes just to call out to WhyGuruji. But when we do it, let's do it from the heart. Let's do it with love, like we're actually calling out. So let's take a couple of minutes. Everyone could sit up and close your eyes. WhyGuru. 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 Like I said, there's a big difference between saying someone's name and actually calling out to them. Okay, so in Guru Nanak Dev Ji's conversations with the Siddhs ask Guru Nanak Dev Ji, they say, these people, these Brahm Gyanis that have merged with the One, can they ever be separated? Once you've met your parent, can you ever be separated again? And Guru Nanak Dev Ji says, Salahi salahi eti suratana baya, meaning that Salahi, the saints who praise WhyGuruji, call out, eti suratana baya, they never want to leave this state of awareness. So once you've met your long lost parent, you're not going to leave them, right? So once they're at that stage, they want to remain in that stage. Even when they're in this illusion, they still focus on the One. And one such Brahm Gyani was Sant Baba Ishar Singh Ji. And a quick sucky about Santaji. When Sant Baba Ishar Singh Ji was about 12, 13 years old, they went to stay with their cousin, and they went there to get an education. So they're staying around their cousin's house, and even at such a young age of 12, 13, they'd meditate so much, right? Sant Baba Ishar Singh Ji, at such a young age, they'd get up at 1:30 in the morning. 1:30, they'd get up, they'd bathe, and then they'd go and sit next to a sarovar, a pool of water. And whilst they were sat there at such an early time in the morning, they'd call out to WhyGuruji. They'd do Sukhmani Sahib over and over again. Just a quick show of hands, has anyone here ever read or listened to Sukhmani Sahib? Anyone? I'm not going to pick on anyone. Okay, that's pretty much the whole room. Great. I want you guys to think about how long it took. What's your fastest Sukhmani Sahib? Whether you're reciting it or listening to it, what's the fastest time you've ever completed a Sukhmani Sahib? Hands up if you've done it in under 15 minutes. No? Okay, what about under 30 minutes Sukhmani Sahib? Anyone? Under 30 minutes? Brilliant. What about under an hour? Who's ever managed under an hour? Yeah, a couple? Good. All right, what about over an hour? Yeah, pretty much everyone. It's a long Bani, right? It takes time. On average, I'd say, yeah, it takes over an hour on average. Now, Sant Baba Ishar Singh Ji would do a Sukhmani Sahib, one Sukhmani Sahib, in 15 minutes. Imagine. Those of you that have done it, you know how long it is. 15 minutes. So if the average time is about an hour, over an hour, in the time it takes someone like me to do one, Sant Baba Ishar Singh Ji's already done over 4. It's scary, right? That speed. And it's only because they'd recited it so much. They'd called out to WhyGuruji so much that WhyGuruji, their parent, used to come to them. And Sant Baba Ishar Singh Ji actually described what this felt like. It's amazing. There's a really cool podcast if you want to hear more on Boss TV. Nice little plug there. So Santaji, oh, there's actually an image here, believe it or not, but it's coming up as white. But Santaji they described this feeling. They said that they would feel really light. So when their parent, when WhyGuruji would come to them, they'd feel really light in that moment. They'd look around, and they said it was like a massive ocean of just bright, warm light. That's how they described it. They said when they used to go into meditation, they would see a lotus flower, a massive lotus flower, and even the flower itself was made out of light. So in all this warm light, Sant Baba Ishar Singh Ji would go and they'd sit on this lotus flower. And in that meditation, they'd recite God's name over and over again. And they said it felt like so much anand, so much bliss, so much love they would feel in that moment. And when they'd come around, hours would have passed. Even though to Sant Baba Ishwar Singh Ji, it would have only felt like a few minutes. Now, what happened was, the cousin's family, where Sant Baba Ishwar Singh Ji was staying, they didn't like the idea that a child, only 12, 13 years old, remember, was leaving the house at 1:30 in the morning. Right? It's quite dangerous, especially in India. So what they done, they locked the door. So the following morning, Sant Baba Ishwar Singh Ji, they wake up, usual time, 1:30, do their shnan, have a bath. They're walking downstairs, they go to open the front door, it's locked. So what did they do? Someone like me would have gone back to bed and said, well, if the door's locked, I'm not going to do it. So, but not Sant Baba Ishwar Singh Ji. They went back in and they went and sat on the stairs. Imagine staircases, even those with carpet, are not very comfortable places to sit. But that's where Sant Baba Ishwar Singh Ji chose to sit. They sat there, and that's where they done their Nitnem that morning. And then when their cousin woke up to go to work, there was obviously no lights on at the time. Their cousin's walking down the stairs, they trip over Sant Baba Ishwar Singh Ji. They pick themselves up and they ask them, they say, why are you up here on the stairs at such an early time in the morning? Sant Baba Ishwar Singh Ji said, you can do whatever you want, but when it gets to 1:30 in the morning, I'm getting up. I'm getting up, I'm doing my shnan, and I'm meditating. That you can't stop me. Lock the door or unlock it, it doesn't matter. You can't stop me. And so from that point onwards, the cousins, they left the front door unopened. They realized that we can't stop this person from doing what they're doing. They realized that this is a saint. Salahi salahi eti suratanapai. This is a saint who was in that awareness. Imagine if you connect to the deepest love beyond what your mind can even comprehend, would you ever leave that? So all of a sudden it makes sense, doesn't it? Why someone would follow this path. If they're experiencing, if they're connecting with their parent, that's why they would do it. From an outsider like me, it looks crazy. Waking up 1:30 in the morning, having a shower that early, sitting next to a pool of water in India, it's dangerous. But not to these saints, not to these salahis. Okay. And then Guru Nanak Dev Ji go on to say, Nadiya atte vaha, bave hai samundar na janiya hai. Meaning that these nadiya, these streams and rivers, they're always flowing to the ocean. Right? They're going back to where they've come from, albeit they still don't realize how big that ocean is. Right? But they're always moving. So if we look at streams and rivers, they're a bit like children. And where do they end up? With their parent. So if the streams and rivers are like us, then who's this ocean we're going towards? It's WhyGuru. It's Guruji, isn't it? So let's look at the characteristics of a river real quick. Now, when a river meets a mountain, what happens? When there's a mountain in the way of this river, it never turns back. It never stops. It keeps on going. It goes around the mountain. It's so steadfast. Just like Sant Baba Ishwar Singh Ji, even though that front door was locked, they found a way around it. They didn't give up on their path of Sikhi. Rivers also meet jungles on their way to the ocean. And what they do is they go straight through it. They go straight through the jungle, and a river ends up giving water to all the plants and all the animals on the way. And if you think about it, that's a little bit like a Brahm Gyani, isn't it? They're on their journey back to the One. And on their way there, they bless people. Sant Baba Ishwar Singh Ji blessed so many people on their journey, on their path. And even Guru Arjan Dev Ji in Sri Sukhmani Sahib, they say, Brahm Gyani anath ka anath. That it's a Brahm Gyani who can help the helpless. So those people who are like dry trees and plants, animals without food, a Brahm Gyani is like that river that gives them that water. And finally then, once a river's gone through the mountains, they've gone through the jungles, they also get to rocks. Many, many rocks in the way that they crash into. Just put your hands up, I'm not going to pick on anyone, but if you set aside time in your day to meditate, doesn't matter how long it is, but hands up, if you put time aside in your day? Anyone? Okay, good. Most of you, that's fine. So put your hands up if sometimes things get in the way of you doing so. Yeah, pretty much everyone, right? So Maharaj is saying that Nadiya Attevaha. So these rivers that flow to the ocean, just like them, no matter what's in our way, we're going to have to keep on going. We've got to keep going. We've got to have it in our mind that one day I'm going to get to the ocean. I don't care. Put a mountain in my way, jungles, rocks, whatever life throws at me, I'm not going to give up on my Sikhi. I'm not going to give up on my Nitnem. I'm not going to give up on my Guru. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji goes on to say, Sumund Saha Sultan, Giraha Seti Mala Tan. So Sumund, the world, and those kings, those sultans, sultan, that are in the world, they use their command to get wealth and possessions, right? Mala Tan. And one such king was King Haridach. And King Haridach was traveling one day with their entourage. So back then, you would normally have the king with their queen. The kings would have their guards around them, right? You'd have the charioteers. It was like a big procession, quite a lot of people. But also traveling with the king was an astrologer. So what happened was, one day, King Haridach is traveling along with their entourage, and they come across an innocent-looking boy, a cowherd, someone who tends to the cattle. And this boy lived alone with his mother, right? It's just the two of them. And when they pass this boy, he's looking at the king, and the astrologer starts laughing, like really laughing. Now, what you've got to remember is astrologers, especially back then, they held a lot of power in the court of kings. Those of you that have seen the Diwali animation, you'll know that it was an astrologer that put ideas, another plug, it was an astrologer that put the idea into the king's head, right? So the king always listened to the astrologer. Now here, King Haridach is wondering why. Why is my astrologer laughing? So he asks the astrologer says, that boy over there, that innocent-looking boy, he's going to be your son-in-law one day. That's what I'm laughing at. He carries on laughing. The king's not laughing. King starts to get very worried. He's like, I'm a king. How can I marry my daughter? He had no son, so whoever married his daughter was going to inherit the kingdom, right? He said, if I'm a king, how can I marry royalty, my blood, into the home of a cowherd? That can't happen. He was too focused on his mal, his dhan, his wealth, his power, right? Now, what happened was the king devised a plan, and unfortunately his plan was to actually murder the young boy, to kill him, get him out of the picture. And the only way the king thought to do this was to impose a tax on the house of this boy. He imposed a tax of rubies. So he sends a minister to the house. The mother of the boy opens the door and the minister says, a tax has now been applied on your house of rubies. You've got to pay up. And the mother's thinking, we're a very poor family. All we do is own cattle. How can we pay a tax of rubies? Surely the king knows that we can't afford such a thing. So what the mother does is she prays at this time. She does an ardas to WhyGuru. She calls out to WhyGuru and she says, help me. Help me at this time. I don't know what to do. There's a tax of rubies I simply cannot pay, and my son's life is in danger now. And WhyGuru at this time calls out. They speak to Mataji and they say, don't fear. Don't have any fear. Your house is full of rubies. You've got so many rubies in your house. Now, when Mataji opened her eyes, lo and behold, there was a massive pile of rubies in her house. But what were the rubies that WhyGuru also meant? It's a bit of an analogy. What did God mean by there's rubies in your house? Any guesses? Go on then, Darshan. Hanji. Yes, the son. The son and the mother, right? So she was a bhagat. She would meditate. So she was a ruby in the eyes of WhyGuru. So what happened was, there was a massive pile of rubies there. And then the minister comes back and he demands payment. He says, I need 2 rubies now. And the mother says, without no fear, just like WhyGuru told her, She says, tell the king to come himself and get the rubies. Now, hearing this, the king thinks, right, I've got a chance now to cause a bit of a commotion. That the king himself has come to your door and you're going to turn him away empty-handed. There's no way that house can afford rubies, so I can use that as an excuse to take the boy away. So the king comes to the door, and Mataji, she opens the door a little bit wider, she turns to the side, and she goes, here you go. Take as many rubies as you want. And the king thinks, wow. He's so shocked at seeing this massive pile of shiny rubies that he realizes that God themselves must have helped this family. That it was impossible for them to pay that tax, and that God themselves protected their bhagat. And the king became so humbled, became so guilty in what he had done, that he actually went and got the boy married to his daughter. Right? So when we look at Samundasar Sultan, even though there's all these kings that are focused on their wealth, their status, their power, even all of those kings are nothing compared to Giri. Giri tulana hovani jetes manaho na visaraha. That all of those kings are nothing compared to the ant who has their mind in WhyGuru. So ants in general are quite insignificant, aren't they? So Maharaj uses their examples anyway, but why an ant? Why wouldn't Maharaj say, I don't know, a lion or something? What is significant about an ant? What Sikhya could we learn from an ant, do you think? Hanji at the back. Work in numbers, that's a great answer. So how can that apply to Sikhi? If an ant can work in numbers, when we think about Sikhi, what do you think, how can we apply that to Sikhi? What do you think? Anyone? Any guesses? Hanji? Sad Sangat, yes, we're doing it now, right? We're sat in numbers and we're learning. This experience is very powerful. And another thing that we can learn from an ant is that even if an ant has their focus on WhyGuruji, they're like the kid at school who remembers their parent, isn't it? Even though they're an ant, they still remember their parent. Now, when you put your hand in front of an ant, what does it do? When you see an ant walking along and you put your hand in front of it, what does that ant do, Hanji? Exactly. So Darshan said sometimes it will go over your hand, but normally it will just go around. And that is exactly what Sant Baba Ishwar Singh Ji did. I'm not calling Sant Baba Ishwar Singh Ji an ant, but we're just looking at the qualities here. No matter what was in their way, even if it was a locked door, that didn't stop Sant Baba Ishwar Singh Ji. They didn't give up. They were very steadfast, like a river. Right? No matter what mountains or jungles or rocks came in their way, they carried on going. Now, if you've ever had ants in your house, you know how annoying it is, right? To get rid of them. They do not stop, especially when you've got loads. Now, in the way that we get annoyed at ants for being in our house, that's the same way that this Maya, this illusion, gets annoyed at us. Why does it get annoyed at us? Because we follow our Guru. We start to remember our parent. So it's a bit like the Matrix breaking that illusion, right? For those of you that have seen it. Maya gets annoyed at us. And what does Maya do when they're annoyed at us? They put all of these obstacles in our way. They lock our doors. They give us so many problems, internal and external. But what have we got to do? Just like that ant, just like that river? Just carry on going. Keep going. Another thing we can look at here is what an ant is interested in. So a lot of people, especially like the king, were interested in jewels and power, right? But an ant, if you put a pile of jewels there and a pile of sugar, the ants only go in one place, and it's not the jewels. They always focus on what's important. For an ant, it's just food. That's it. Just food. And it's also like a Brahm Gyani. So Guru Arjan Dev Ji and Sri Sukhmani Sahib, they say, Brahm Gyani ka Bhojan Gyan. Their Bhojan, their food is Gyan, knowledge of the One. That's what they eat. That's all they're focused on. Then they go on to say, Nanaka Brahm Gyani ka Brahm Dhyan. Their dhyan, their focus is always on their parent. The ocean that this river's going to, they always focus on that. And then lastly, then, the mother was of a very low status. So she was like an ant, especially in the eyes of the king, right? She was of a low status. Her son coming into the king's family, no, can't happen. So in that respect, Mataji was like an ant, but in the eyes of God, in the eyes of WhyGuru, she was much higher than that king. Right? She got saved, didn't she? So look how much Sikhi, one of the smallest creatures in the world, has taught us. Just an ant. And ultimately, it's... Oh, I'll wrap up after the recap. Sorry, we've come to the end. I'll just do a quick recap through today's talk. So we looked at the school of life that we're in. Okay, so what we're in, an analogy for it is we're just in a school. And just like a school, we just got to learn and remember that we were sent here, right? But we can't forget our parent. We looked at the path of the saints, that no matter what comes in their way, they carry on going like the qualities of a river, very steadfast, they don't stop. And then finally, kings versus ants. Okay, so on our path, in our lives, we're going to have the choice to focus on disillusion, all the jewels and rubies, or we can focus on the real jewels, the real rubies, which is obviously our Sikhi. And it's those ants who have so much focus in their life, no matter what comes in their way, they're the ones that complete their life's journey. So I'll wrap it up there. Has anyone got any questions or vichar of their own they want to share? No? Darshan? Not even free? You've had a long time to think about this. Seva Singh, anything from you? No? Okay, guys, we'll wrap up there. I'll pass it over to Parchar, but before I do, please forgive me for all the mistakes I've made in giving this talk, and bless me so that I'll do better next time. So let's finish up with the Fateh Ji. WhyGuru Ji ka Khalsa, WhyGuru Ji ki Fateh.
WhyGuru, thank you, Manpreet Singh, for the lovely talk. I think what's going on downstairs? First Ardas. So we've got about 5 minutes before Guru Sahib goes to Sachkhand, just after 5 minutes. So how about Benti to Pai Karami Singh, if they could do some Kirtan just for the next 5 minutes? Go on, bro. You're the closest to the Vajja. Right? Pai Saji do Tabradi Seva. And for next 5 minutes, we'll do some whatever Paisa Pai Karami Singh wants to do. And then after that, we'll do Ardas, shorty Ardas, and then go with Guru Sahib to Sachkhand. Maharaji's already in Sukhasan, so we'll go with them to Sachkhand. WhyGuru Ji ka Khalsa, WhyGuru Ji ki Fateh. Guru
WhyGuru, 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 WhyGuru. एक तू ही निरंकार, एक तू ही निरंकार, एक तू ही निरंकार, बाबा तू ही निरंकार, एक तू ही निरंकार, एक तू ही निरंकार, एक तू ही निरंकार, धन गुरु नानक तू ही निरंकार, धन गुरु नानक तू ही निरंकार, एक तू ही निरंकार, एक तू ही निरंकार, एक तू ही निरंकार, एक तू ही निरंकार। ਧੰਨ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਦੇਵ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ, 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 ਧੰਨ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਦੇਵ ਸਾਹਿਬ, ਧੰਨ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਦੇਵ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ, ਧੰਨ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਦੇਵ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ, ਧੰਨ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਦੇਵ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਸਿਮਰਨ ਜੀ ਸਭ ਤੇ ਉੱਚਾ, ਸਭ ਤੇ ਉੱਚਾ। ਪ੍ਰਭ ਕਾ ਸਿਮਰਨ ਜੀ ਸਭ ਤੇ ਉੱਚਾ, ਪ੍ਰਭ ਕਾ ਸਿਮਰਨ ਜੀ ਸਭ ਤੇ ਉੱਚਾ, ਸਭ ਤੇ ਉੱਚਾ। ਪ੍ਰਭ ਕਾ ਸਿਮਰਨ ਜੀ ਸਭ ਤੇ ਉੱਚਾ, 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 ਸਭ ਤੇ ਉੱਚਾ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ 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 ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ 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 ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ 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 ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ 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 ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ 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 ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ 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 ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।